waking up 60 days from now and seeing your whole life reshaped. Not by chance, not by luck, but by a discipline that feels unshakable. Imagine unlocking a level of self-mastery that most people never experience, not because they lack desire, but because they've never been shown where real discipline is forged. I want you to picture yourself in that place, because today we're going to talk about what it truly takes to get there. Now, have you ever wondered why the promises about changing your life in 3 weeks or building a new habit in a month so often come up short? Have you heard those catchy slogans, just 21 days and you'll be transformed? It sounds nice. It sells a lot of books. But is it true for the things that matter most? Here's another question. What if everything you thought you knew about building habits was just a fraction of the truth? What if real change, the kind that sticks when the mood is gone, when the sun isn't shining, when nobody's watching, takes something more than a burst of inspiration or a good week? That's the curiosity I want to stir up in you today. Because if you've ever set a goal, started strong, and watched your determination fade, you're in good company. I've been there myself. You go out, buy the new planner, put on the new shoes, set the alarm a little earlier. For the first week, maybe 2, you're on fire. You tell your friends, you start to feel that little surge of pride. Look at me, I'm really doing it. But then comes the moment nobody talks about. The moment where the excitement cools, where the applause dies down, and it's just you and the next repetition, the next morning, the next decision. And that's where the real test begins. Because most people don't fail at the start. They fail at the spot where discipline is revealed, not just declared. What's at stake? Everything. Because discipline is not about how you perform when you feel like it. It's about what you do when you don't. And there's a window, a 60-day window, that will test every assumption you've ever had about what you're truly made of. Not just how hard you can try, but how wisely you can design your life so discipline becomes automatic, not accidental. So I want to invite you into a new way of thinking. What if you could set up your life so that discipline was the default, not a struggle? What if you could survive not just the good days, but the boring ones, the tough ones, the ones where the old you would have given in? What if passing the 60-day test meant you could transfer that confidence into every part of your life, your health, your finances, your relationships? Today we'll expose why the 60-day mark is where most people stumble, and why most never even realize what happened. And more importantly, I'll show you how to get through it, not by gritting your teeth harder, not by hyping yourself up for the 100th time, but by understanding the laws that govern discipline, so you can stop hoping and start knowing. Because in the end, discipline isn't just about adjusting behavior. It's about shaping identity. What you practice consistently doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you become. That's why a common myth needs to be cleared up. You've probably even heard me say it before, because it can be true for the little ones. Here's the myth. It takes 21 days to form a habit. It sounds neat, pretty encouraging. 3 weeks and everything clicks. And for small adjustments, there may be a grain of truth there. You can get familiar with simple behaviors fairly quickly. But the habits that matter most, the ones that stretch character and demand growth, don't become automatic in 3 short weeks. Not even close. See, what that myth really does is set a trap. It tells you the journey is shorter than it is. So you get those early wins and you start to feel 10 feet tall. Maybe you get through the first week without missing a workout. Or you go a whole month without that old vice. You start thinking, maybe I've cracked the code this time. The compliments come in, and that feels good too. But be careful. Early success is a double-edged sword. It builds confidence, but sometimes it builds a confidence that isn't built to last. Why? Because those first weeks, you're riding a wave of motivation. You're inspired. You've got new energy, new tools. Maybe you read a new book or you watched a seminar. You get that spike. But spikes don't last. I don't care how passionate you are. Passion is the spark, but it is not the engine. Discipline, real discipline, doesn't show up until the spark dims. The question isn't, can you do it when you're excited? It's, will you do it when it's Tuesday afternoon and nobody's around and nothing feels different yet? That's where the 60-day test comes in. Because it's not the first 21 days that count. It's the 22nd day, the 29th, the 31st, when the newness wears off and the work feels ordinary. I've watched people judge themselves too early. They set the goal, stick with it for a few weeks, and when the shine fades, they think something's wrong. They say, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I just don't have what it takes. But the problem isn't them. The problem is the timeline they believed. They thought if they weren't transformed in a month, they must have failed. But let me share a secret. Discipline is not proven in the first 30 days. It's revealed after them. The first month is rehearsal. It's a test drive. The real journey begins when you no longer get applause for showing up, when the scale stops moving quickly, when the bank account doesn't look all that different. That's when you find out if your habits are built on the sand of motivation or on the rock of daily standards. So next time you hear someone say, give it 21 days, smile politely, then commit to 60, because that's where the test gets real. And that's where most people quietly bow out. Not because they're weak, but because they misunderstood what discipline demands. If you want to build something that lasts, don't judge progress too early. Don't confuse a burst of effort with a real breakthrough. Let the applause fade, then notice what you do next. That's where your true capacity for discipline is revealed. Which brings us to the heart of the matter. To understand the real 60-day test, you have to see what's actually being tested. It isn't strength. It isn't intelligence. It isn't even raw willpower. The test is far quieter, something subtle, something the world almost never notices. The first thing the 60-day test measures is your ability to be consistent when there's no emotional payoff. It's easy to keep showing up when you're getting results, when the scale drops every morning or the phone rings with a new opportunity. But what about when all you get is silence? What about when you're pouring your effort into the routine and nobody's clapping and nothing looks different? That's when most people begin to drift. They start negotiating with themselves. They ask if all this effort is really worth it. Second, the test is this. Can you keep showing up after the novelty dies? The beginning of any venture has a honeymoon period. New gym membership, new business, new relationship. It's all fireworks for a while. But eventually, the new car smell fades. The work becomes work. Now you're in a battle with boredom. And boredom is a strong opponent because it whispers that ordinary is a failure, when in reality, ordinary done well is what builds extraordinary. The third part, can you act without visible results? Think about a farmer. He plants the seed and waters the ground day after day. But for a long while, nothing shows above the soil. No praise, no harvest, not even a hint that something's happening. That's what the 60-day test asks. Will you keep tending the soil of your habits when there's nothing to show for it? Or will you walk away before the sprout breaks the surface? And here's another. Can you continue when no one is watching? When nobody is giving you a gold star? When nobody even knows you're still at it? That's integrity. That's character. It's easy to impress the crowd for a night. But who are you in the quiet behind closed doors? The 60-day test exposes the real answer. So, you see, the test isn't about how much effort you can muster. That's not the point. It's about who you become when the effort feels unrewarded. When you move from doing to being, it's about your identity under boredom, under the steady drumbeat of repetition, when the urge to seek novelty or quick victory grows loud. Most people never pass this test, not because they're lazy, but because they haven't reframed what's being measured. They think the test is about intensity, how hard they can push for a few weeks. But the real question is, who are you when things get quiet? Who are you when excitement is gone? And all you have left is your standard, your system, and your why. That's the crucible where discipline is forged. It's not a sprint, not a spectacle, but a slow, steady grind. When you look back after 60 days and realize you've become the person who shows up rain or shine, that's the true reward. That's when the habit becomes part of you, not just something you do. So when the urge to quit shows up, when the work feels dull and the excitement is gone, remember this. The test was never about excitement. It was always about consistency. Lighting the candle every day, regardless of mood or momentum, is what eventually fills the room with light. And this is exactly where most people fail. There's a specific stretch where discipline is quietly tested. Not at the beginning and not at the finish, but in the middle. I call it the drop-off zone. Somewhere between days 31 and 45, progress feels slower, results feel distant, and motivation stops cooperating. That's why so many start strong and fade early. Not because they couldn't continue, but because they misunderstood what this phase was meant to prove. It starts with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a wonderful thing. It gets you out of bed, helps you lace up your shoes, maybe even pushes you through that first month. But by the time you hit the halfway mark, the shine is gone. The crowd's gone home. The newness has vanished. And the only one left to keep you going is you. This is where the enthusiasm collapses. It's not that you don't care anymore. It's that you start to realize discipline asks you to do the work when nobody's watching and nothing's changing, at least not on the surface. There's a psychological wall that pops up right here. Delayed reward. All those reps, all those early mornings, all that self-denial. And where's the big payout? The body hasn't changed that much. The bank account doesn't look all that different. You're still packing your lunch, walking past the bakery, or saying no to another night out. It's easy to think, this isn't working. I'm working hard, but nothing's different. That inner dialogue is the real challenge. It's not your muscles that get tired first. It's your mind. The little voice says, you've done enough. Take it easy. You deserve a break. Why not just relax a little? That's the rational voice, the logical sounding excuse. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It's very convincing. If you listen, it'll have you believing that slowing down or skipping out is just good sense. And here's the trick. Failure at this stage feels rational. It doesn't feel like a collapse. It feels like maturity, like wisdom. You tell yourself, maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe I can loosen up and still make progress. But comfort is a clever negotiator. It comes back wearing a suit and tie, shaking your hand, telling you it's your friend. Next thing you know, you're back where you started, and you don't even remember how you got there. Comfort that old adversary. quietly reasserts control. Not with a bang, but with a soft landing. A day off here, a missed commitment there. Nothing dramatic. Just slow erosion, day by day, until the new standard fades and the old habits return. This is the most dangerous place because it all feels so reasonable. No fireworks, no big crash, just a gentle drift back to average. That's why so many fail here. They don't notice it happening until the 60 days have slipped through their fingers. If you ever find yourself rationalizing a shortcut or talking yourself out of your new standard, pause. Ask, is this the voice of growth or the whisper of comfort? One moves you forward, the other quietly leads you back. Remember this about the drop-off zone. Most people don't fail there because they can't continue, but because quitting suddenly feels justified. That's why the middle of the journey carries so much weight. If you can outlast the reasonable excuses, you can outlast almost anything. And that brings us to the real dividing line, the difference that decides who continues and who fades. It's the line between motivation and discipline. People talk about motivation constantly. If I could just feel more motivated, I'd be unstoppable. So they wait for a spark, chase inspiration, hoping one more seminar or quote will restart the engine. But here's the reality. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes, just like the weather. One day you wake up ready to conquer the world. The next you wake up and all you want is another hour of sleep or maybe just a little comfort food. If you build your habits on how you feel, your consistency will blow around with every wind that passes through. Discipline, on the other hand, is built on a different foundation. Discipline asks, what's the standard? It doesn't care if you feel like it. It doesn't negotiate with your mood. It just shows up. It's like a thermostat instead of a thermometer. A thermometer reacts to the temperature in the room, but a thermostat sets it. Motivation reacts. Discipline decides. See, motivation always asks, do I feel like it today? It's a question that leads you straight into inconsistency. Some days the answer is yes. Many days it's no. But discipline never asks if you feel like it. It asks, what's the rule? What's the commitment? It's not about being perfect. It's about having a standard you refuse to drop. If you rely on mood, you guarantee inconsistency. If you wait for the perfect day, the easy day, the high energy day, you'll spend your life waiting. But when you set a standard, you remove the daily debate. No more inner negotiations, no more arguing with yourself in front of the gym or the notebook or the bank statement. The decision has already been made. That's what I mean when I say discipline replaces decision-making with rules. You don't have to wake up and choose whether to honor your commitment. You made the choice once, and now you just follow through. That's the secret of every high achiever I've ever met. They don't live by feelings. They live by standards. Now, am I saying you should never feel excited? Of course not. Enjoy motivation when it comes. Ride that wave. But don't count on it to build your future. Build your future on discipline, because discipline stays when motivation leaves. The next time you hear yourself ask, do I feel like it? Recognize that question for what it is, the voice of the old pattern. The old self negotiates. The new self doesn't. The new self asks a different question. What's the standard? And standards get results, regardless of mood, weather, or circumstance. That distinction leads directly into something most people misunderstand: the difference between goals and standards. Most people live by goals. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to read 12 books. I want to save $1,000. Goals are useful. They provide direction. They give you something to aim at. But goals alone don't carry you across the gap. Standards are what build the bridge. goal is a target. It sits out there on the horizon and asks you to come closer. But a standard, that's a rule for your behavior. A standard says, this is who I am. This is how I do things. Not just when it's easy, not just when the stars line up, all the time. Standards don't ask for your permission. They don't care about the mood of the day. They set the expectation, and you rise or you fall to meet it. You see, goals expire, but standards compound. You reach a goal, and what happens? Maybe you celebrate for a day or two, maybe even a week. But after that, the old routines creep back in if you haven't raised your standard along with the achievement. The people who go far, the ones who live with excellence, they understand this secret. Every time you raise your standard, your life gets bigger. Every time you let your standard slip, your life shrinks just a little. Let me give you an example. Someone says, I work out when life allows. Well, life will rarely allow. Life's busy. Life's complicated. That's a goal with no teeth. But another person says, I don't miss. That's a standard. That's a rule. Now, does that mean perfection? Not at all. But it means there's a line in the sand. And every day you cross it, your identity gets stronger. Or maybe you've heard, I'll try. That's a goal language. It leaves room for exit, for excuse. But this is who I am. That's a standard. It says, I'm the kind of person who shows up even when I don't feel like it. And when you start to live from standards instead of goals, you stop wondering if you'll make progress. You start expecting it. Here's the principle. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. You don't achieve what you want. You achieve what you tolerate. So if your results aren't where you want them, check your standards, not your intentions. The magic of standards is that they're present tense, not future hope. They're the habits you live by today. They're the quiet decisions you make in the morning, the invisible boundaries you refuse to cross when nobody else would even notice. Standards are the discipline multiplier. You hold them long enough, and they start to multiply results in ways that surprise even you. So the next time you're tempted to write down a big goal, pause and ask a better question. What's the standard that makes this inevitable? Because real transformation doesn't live in what you want. It lives in what you're willing to require of yourself. And once standards are clear, another truth comes into focus, one that quietly governs behavior change. Environment beats willpower. Anyone who has tried to break a habit, build a new one, or redirect their life without changing their surroundings has learned this lesson the hard way. You see, we all like to think discipline is just about inner strength, that if we want it badly enough, we'll do it. But life doesn't work that way for most. If your environment stays hostile, your habits don't stand a chance. I've seen it over and over. A man promises to cut back on sweets, but his cupboards are still packed with cookies and candy. A woman vows to stop wasting evenings on television, but the remote is right there, calling her name every night. It isn't a lack of desire that trips them up, it's the setup. If you want to make discipline easier, don't just work harder, work smarter. Design friction against your bad habits. Make it a hassle to go back to the old ways. You want to eat healthier? Stock your kitchen with the good stuff. Make the treats hard to reach. Or better yet, don't bring them home at all. You want to read more? Leave a book on the table where you usually sit instead of your phone. See, discipline isn't just about resisting temptation. It's about removing the choice altogether. The strongest people I know don't rely on endless self-control. They rely on systems, on design, on little tweaks that make the good behavior the easy option. They don't keep cookies in the house. and brag about not eating them. They never bring them home, and there's nothing to resist. Success becomes the default option when you set up your life that way. You take the fight out of the process. You don't stand at the crossroads every night asking, should I or shouldn't I? You make one decision one time, and you let your environment carry the rest of the weight. There's a rule here. If your environment stays the same, your behavior will always try to revert to the old pattern. It doesn't matter how many affirmations you tape to the mirror. If the fridge is still full of soda, if the workspace is still cluttered, if the people around you are all pushing in the opposite direction, you're pushing a boulder up a hill. So next time you want to build a new standard, start with your space. Set up your life so it works for you, not against you. Make it easier to do what's right and harder to do what's wrong. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Discipline doesn't survive on hope. It responds to conditions. In the right environment, it grows stronger. In the wrong one, it quietly collapses. So don't rely on being tougher. Be more deliberate. Change what surrounds you, and behavior follows. That groundwork is what carries you into a lesser-known phase of the journey, the stretch from day 46 to day 60. Most people don't recognize it while they're in it, but something important begins to shift here. Discipline, once heavy and deliberate, starts to feel less forced. The daily resistance fades. What began as effort starts to settle into identity. There's a subtle transition from doing the discipline to becoming disciplined. At first, you have to remind yourself. You have to push. You have to talk yourself into getting up early, making the call, walking past the bakery, hitting the books, whatever it is for you. But somewhere in that final lap, the repetition starts to do its real work. The action is no longer just something you do. It becomes part of who you are. You go from being someone who's trying to someone who just does. That's the identity lock-in. Most folks miss it because it doesn't come with fanfare. There's no big moment, no parade. It sneaks up on you. One morning you wake up and you realize you don't have to negotiate with yourself anymore. You don't have to write a speech in your head about why you need to keep going. You just show up because that's what you do. It's the power of small, boring repetitions, again and again. The magic isn't in the single heroic effort. It's in stringing together the ordinary days, the ones nobody sees, the ones nobody posts about, the ones that seem insignificant. But these are the days that add up, that harden the new identity in place. And here's the real insight. This phase feels quiet, but it's decisive. The world is still turning. Nothing looks dramatically different on the outside, but inside, a new foundation is being poured. Discipline becomes self-reinforcing. Each small victory makes the next one easier. The brain stops asking if this is temporary. The new behavior is locked in as the new normal. You'll notice you don't need as much outside validation. You aren't looking for someone to pat you on the back. You start to trust yourself. That's the greatest gift discipline can give, the ability to believe in your own consistency. You don't have to wonder anymore if you're the type who quits. You know you're not because the evidence is there, built one unremarkable day at a time. This is the phase where most people miss the miracle. They're waiting for the trumpet blast, the lightning bolt. But the transformation happens in the silence, in the quiet commitment, in the just another day kind of effort. That's when you cross over. That's when discipline becomes who you are, not just what you do. If you find yourself in those days, somewhere between 46 and 60, and everything feels a little flat, take that as a good sign. That dullness isn't failure. It's the sound of a new identity taking hold. Stay with it. This is where the roots go deep. And that sets the stage for what happens when the full 60 days are complete. This is the real turning point. Not because a calendar has been checked off, but because something internal has shifted. For the first time, hope is no longer doing the work. Proof has taken its place. See, before you started, maybe you hoped you could do it. Maybe you wondered, is this for me? Can I really change? Will I see it through? And hope has its place. It gets you moving. But hope alone doesn't change your life. It's proof that transforms you. Once you cross that 60-day finish line, you've got evidence. Not in your journal, not in your dreams, but in your actions. You've strung together day after day of showing up. You can look back and say, I did that. That was me. No one can take it away. That's when self-trust quietly replaces self-talk. You don't need to pep talk yourself every morning because deep down, you know you keep your word to yourself. And the power of discipline isn't stuck in one area. It's transferable. You build it in your health. You notice it in your work. You raise it in your finances. It shows up in your focus. It's like a rising tide. Lift one part of your life and the others begin to follow. You realize you're not just disciplined with your diet or your study or your savings. You're a disciplined person. That's a shift that can never be taken away. You stop asking, can I? That question loses its grip. Instead, a new question comes in. What's next? That's the difference between living in doubt and living with momentum. The horizon opens up. You move from wondering if you'll finish to planning what you'll conquer next. But don't think the reward is just in a number or a checkbox. It's deeper than that. The real result is confidence rooted in evidence, not emotion. You're not faking it, not hoping, not waiting for another wave of inspiration. You've built a bank account of trust with yourself, and every deposit makes the next task easier. Others may not see the quiet strength in your eyes, but you feel it. You carry yourself differently. You make promises to yourself and you keep them. You know the cost of discipline, and you also know its reward. Here's the real payoff. Once you've done it, even once, complete doubt never fully returns. You know it can be done because you've proven it. From that moment on, discipline stops being a story you tell yourself and becomes something you live day after day. And that's exactly why a certain mistake is so destructive. It steals more progress than outright failure ever could. I call it the anti-reset rule. Most people believe that if they miss a day or slip once, the only solution is to start over. I blew it on Wednesday, so I'll reset on Monday. It sounds reasonable, but it's dangerous. Resetting kills momentum and hands control back to perfection, where progress quietly dies. You have to understand, restarting isn't as innocent as it looks. Every time you start over, you lose a piece of your history, your continuity. It tells your mind that progress only counts if it's flawless, but life's not flawless. Progress isn't about perfection. It's about not abandoning the standard. There's a high cost to what I call Monday thinking. The calendar gives us all these fresh starts. New week, new month, new year. And sometimes, yes, that can spark a new fire. But more often, it becomes an excuse. You slip once, so you toss out all your effort and promise yourself, next week, I'll be perfect. But discipline isn't built on fresh starts. It's built on the days you keep going, even after you slip. Progress is measured by continuity, not by perfection. If you miss a day, if you stumble, you don't erase the scoreboard and go back to zero. You simply get back to your standard the next day. One missed day is just a blip. Abandoning your standard altogether, that's what kills momentum. Here's a truth to remember. Discipline survives imperfection. It dies with excuses. Everybody slips. Everybody has a day when things don't go according to plan. The difference isn't in who messes up. The difference is in who gets back up and how quickly. The ones who succeed see a missed day as an event, not an identity. They don't crown themselves failures. They just return to the system. I've seen people keep a streak going for months, then lose it for a day, and throw it all away out of disappointment. But the winners, they don't see a missed day as the end of the journey. They see it as part of the process. They keep their eyes on continuity, on the larger arc of discipline. That's what counts. So next time you hear that little voice, start over Monday, answer with this: no, I'm not starting over. I'm carrying forward. I'm adding to what I've built. I don't need a perfect record. I need a consistent one. If you hold to this, you'll discover something important about discipline. It isn't fragile, it's flexible. It can bend without breaking, unless you surrender to excuses. Measure progress by your ability to continue, not by your ability to be perfect. That's the anti-reset rule, and it will save you years of unnecessary stops and restarts. With that foundation in place, it's time to step back and look at the larger arc. People talk about the long game for a reason. Real success is built over years, not weekends. The 60-day test fits into that picture as a filter, not a finish line. It proves you can sustain effort long enough for it to matter, but it isn't the end. It's simply the first true milestone on a much longer road. Most people, truth be told, never pass this test even once. They get stuck in the cycle of short bursts, quick resets, and chasing the next new thing. They're always at the starting gate, never at the finish. They taste the first days of change, but they never experience the deep rewards of disciplined identity. You want to know why most lives never shift in a lasting way? Because they don't stay in the game long enough for life to reward them. 60 days is more than a number. It's a filter that separates those who want change from those who are willing to build it. Once you've passed through, your baseline is permanently raised. The old you couldn't have done it. The new you can, because now you're living by a higher standard. It's like stretching a rubber band. Once it's stretched, it never returns to its original shape. And here's the power, the compounding effect of a disciplined identity. One cycle completed isn't just a check mark on the calendar. It's a new floor for your life. You've built a foundation that you can stand on, build on, reach from. Every discipline cycle you finish adds another layer, another bit of self-trust, another proof that you can keep your word to yourself. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to do it again. What I've seen over and over is that most people quit before life ever has to reward them. They get discouraged too soon, measure results too early, or let a single slip convince them it's over. But if you play the long game, if you stack those cycles, you get to reap rewards that the sprinters never see. The slow, steady progress that stacks up year after year until suddenly people call you lucky or gifted or wonder what your secret is. But there's no secret. There's just the discipline of showing up day after day, long enough for the results to start showing up too. You keep going until your baseline is no longer where you started, but where you once dreamed of arriving. When you look at your own journey, keep this perspective in mind. This isn't about making it once and being finished. It's about living in a way where each cycle of discipline leaves you stronger, steadier, and a little closer to who you intend to become. The 60-day test isn't an ending. It's a starting point you return to again and again for the rest of your life. And with that perspective set, let's bring everything together. What remains is a challenge, but not a loud one, and not one built on bravado. It's a quiet challenge, rooted in the power of showing up when nothing feels dramatic. This 60-day test isn't about intensity. It isn't about how fired up you feel today or how many promises you make before tomorrow arrives. The real test? It's whether you can keep showing up when nobody's looking, when nobody's asking, when the feeling of novelty is gone and all that's left is another day, another repetition, another quiet act of discipline. That's the difference between the few who change and the many who only wish. You'll find, if you take this on, that most of the journey isn't fireworks. It isn't applause. It's just you, quietly stacking up another day, another small win, another quiet vote for the kind of person you're becoming. 60 days from now, you'll have something that nobody can give you and nobody can take away. Proof, not another explanation, not another round of, I'll start Monday. Not another excuse for why it didn't work out, but evidence, a track record, a new baseline for your life. You'll discover that discipline doesn't change your life in a day. It doesn't hand you a trophy because you got through a week or even a month. Discipline changes who you are if you stay long enough for it to stick. And you'll notice as you keep going, that the big moments are rare, but the small ones, those are the bricks that build a new future. Every day you show up when it would be easier to hide. Every choice you make when comfort calls your name. Every time you get back on track instead of starting over, you're carving a new identity. Quietly, steadily, irrevocably. So my challenge to you is simple. Don't just try harder. Design your life so discipline can thrive. Set the standard, not just the goal. Shape your environment. Stick to continuity, not perfection. When you miss, return to your standard. And when you finish, don't stop. Start the next cycle stronger. Because 60 days from now, you will either have proof or another explanation. That's the deal. And if you want your life to change, you have to stay long enough for discipline to stick. Discipline doesn't change your life in a day. It changes who you are if you stay long enough for it to stick.